11, we're going well. International Relations Policy Framework. I've got Matt Nichols in the room and he's got a presentation for us. Thank you.
Kia ora, councillors. So this is a proposal from a large group of groups and organisations across the city to select 4 priority relationships for our city's international engagement. Council approved the high-level policy framework in 2019. Since that time, the group has had a fresh look at the world. We have factored in the considerations and uncertainty around COVID-19, and we've agreed on 4 key partnerships together. The group believes that these partnerships will accelerate the city's post-COVID economic recovery through taking a citywide approach to how we connect with the world. We believe it will grow our connections with international centres of skills and talent and customers, and it will allow the council to show leadership in the city's international ecosystem. So just to jog your memory, why an international relations policy? Because so much of what we do as a city and so much of what the organisations and groups in our city do is dependent on international relationships. We are lucky in Ōtautahi that there is a strong desire to work collaboratively, and we have proven as a group that collaboration really works, and it results in initiatives and knowledge transfer and deals and customers for our city. There's been a long-held eagerness to make a better use of the mayor and councillors as key diplomatic tools, because in lots of parts of the world, mayors and councillors have real weight and gravitas and can open doors that couldn't otherwise be opened. And what we've found is that the work that we've done as a city until now has been mainly reactive, and it's been hard to say no in the absence of a prioritisation framework. So this is what you agreed to in 2019. Just to highlight for you again, our priorities, they are to strengthen international connections to attract and develop the best talent and ideas, and increase the well-being of Christchurch citizens through a prosperous economy. So it's an economic growth focused strategy, while however retaining the important connections to people links in sister cities. Here are the founding members of the framework, and we want to emphasise that we want this to be organic and evolve over time, and we want for any other actors in the city with significant international interest to be able to join. Like, for example, the cluster of businesses that now make up our city's expanding aerospace sector. So what we've done, we've agreed together that we want to collaborate and go deep in a small number of places, because being targeted as a city, and we acknowledge that we are in global terms a small city with a finite amount of resource, being targeted helps us to prioritise and play to our strengths. And these partnerships would receive the priority support of the council's elected leadership and organisation. And we would take a holistic citywide approach to these. So here are our 3 proposed citywide focus partnerships. The first is Guangdong Province in China. We already have good links and connections into Guangdong Province, China. We are a formal friendly city with the city of Shenzhen. Guangzhou is an important export destination for us, and until recently we have had a direct flight link active via China Southern Airlines, in which we hope to re-establish again in the future. We have a New Zealand Consulate General run by the central government in Guangzhou, and they are very eager to see more of us as a city. So it's just a good fit overall for the group. Republic of Korea, likewise, a very good, strong fit and alignment overall. The Republic of Korea is an important Antarctic gateway partner for us. So that means that we have connections into Incheon and Busan already, and of course our sister city of Songpa-gu. It's also of high interest to our city's secondary school education market, whereas Guangdong Province and the United States West Coast are of interest to our tertiary education providers. And the United States West Coast. So these, like Guangdong Province in China and Republic of Korea, are important global economies in their own right. We have the Antarctic program connection there. We are hoping to be able to confirm an American Airlines direct flight into Los Angeles very soon. We have our sister city of Seattle that has huge potential for us. And once again, just very good complementarity and alignment across the combined interests of our group. We have a different sort of a relationship that we're proposing for Australia. We're proposing that it be designated as a foundation and recovery partner. And that's to acknowledge the really special relationship that we've always had with the Australian people, and particularly, of course, our sister city of Adelaide. Australia is going to be very important for our city as we look to bounce back quickly and strongly from the economic impact of COVID-19. And we're working really closely with Christchurch NZ and the airport company and others on that. So the benefits. We expect that taking a citywide approach, a Christchurch approach to working together internationally, will yield knowledge transfer and the things that really matter to us, and particularly Christchurch NZ's 4 super nodes. But also, of course, climate change adaptation and resilience, which is a priority for the council organisation as well, and for lots of other organisations in the group, obviously. We're hoping to see a recovery in skilled migrant and international student numbers as a result of being targeted and joined up in the way that we approach key international markets, as well as new and returning air links, increasing business connections and exports. And ultimately, this is about Ōtautahi showing leadership as a strategic, well-joined up metro centre for Aotearoa. So if this were adopted today, the council and our partners would be publicising these new partnerships as the 4 destinations that Christchurch Inc. Wants to prioritise in the world. Noting, of course, that this will not stop any of the partners in the group from working in other destinations as well. We will be developing detailed citywide work plans for each of these, and which we would be reporting back to you, the council, along with a reporting framework and KPIs. So with that, thought we'd invite questions and comments.
Thank you. Would you like to just expand a little bit on the significance of the engagement with other agencies, so that this is not the council strategy, but it's a city-wide strategy?
Yes, thanks. So until the development of this framework, the Christchurch City Council essentially had its own international relations policy. And the policy at that time was about prioritising our sister city relationships and just exploring links and areas of mutual benefit with them. What we heard from the wider international relations community in Christchurch is that they were very keen to put the city's civic standing and mana, and the mana of the mayor and councillors, they wanted to put you to work for their objectives as well. And they have a lot of objectives and interests in the world. So what we did was started comparing the respective priorities of these organisations, and we came up with a methodology for comparing areas of relative importance. And so this is about taking the city's international work in the future away from just a council-only approach to a true citywide approach.
Is your microphone on?
My apologies. My apologies. Okay,
yeah,
we can all make mistakes. Thank you. I was commenting on geopolitical issues as identified in the report, and I guess the challenges, some of the policies of other governments, like Australia's deportation of people in circumstances, detention of refugee claimants, those sorts of things. How do we address, some of those broader geopolitical tensions that exist country to country from a city perspective?
So I worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade for 8 years, and if I was still working for them, what I would be saying to the elected council of Christchurch right now is that in any close relationship, there are going to be areas where we agree strongly with each other and areas where we disagree with each other. And the best way to address those is at the level of states to states. So what we are trying to do with this strategy is to grow our connections and relationships with people, with businesses, and cities or sub-regions, not with national governments. We need to leave that to the government of our country, Aotearoa, and to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to do that. And it's particularly important right now with a highly dynamic and concerning global situation that we give them the space to form up their own position. And in due course, if they do need to advise local governments on policy settings around particular countries, they will absolutely do that. And the benefit that we have in this grouping is that MFAT is an integral member of the group. So nothing happens without their approval.
Lovely, thank you. Jimmy Chen.
Thank you. Hey, Matt, yesterday I sent 3 questions to the Office of CE staff, not yet get one. First one, I just want to know, except the individual or key stakeholders, the work plan, have any corporate integrated action plan or implementation plan for this the strategy?
Yes, thanks. So effectively, the implementation plan for the strategy will be the 4 citywide action plans. You can call them implementation plans that we will develop and will be presented to you for approval. So there will be one for Guangdong, one for Republic of Korea, one for US West Coast, and one for Australia. And that will be how we implement this strategy.
Okay, if that's true, based on your office, the recommendation 2.3, particular emphasis would like to present to the council, regarding to measurable and monitor those kind of outcomes in an annual basis. My question is, first one, if we didn't have this kind of the implementation plan, how come, to present to council regarding to this implementation? Should the implementation plan first, then implementation and measure it the second. The other one is what's the rationale for the in an annual basis? Because I think this very crucial, important for the greater benefit for the city of our future. So my view should be at least 2 times a year presented to the council.
So on your second point, Councillor, about the annual nature of reporting, what we've obviously found since the advent of COVID-19 is that it has made the world more uncertain and it's made the entire planning process for international engagement happen more slowly. So we think that an annual reporting regime at this point is appropriate, but we're really open to it being reviewed in future once we can actually put this work to action internationally. As for implementation, we would say as a group that we're confident that we are actually implementing the framework. This proposal to you as part of the implementation. The next piece about these work plans is the next part of the implementation. So these could very well have just been called implementation proposals.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Thank you, for all these international citywide the priorities. You have eventually to chosen and selected in a corporate way for these the 4 kind of our city to the region or province. But I just want to know, except at least the 4, top 4, have any top 5, top 6, etc. Because my fellow councillors also concerned maybe some other region or has been missed out, whether we have this information or not.
So we need to strike a balance with these priorities. As you know, if you prioritize everything, then you prioritize nothing. And we're really conscious of that as a city with limited resources. We knew that we needed to limit ourselves to a really small number of destinations. And that was why there was an intense amount of discussion and scrutiny and debate around the number of priority destinations we should be putting forward to you at the council. Some other destinations have obviously not been able to make the cut, and we've had to put a lot of careful thought into those. And we've taken advice in particular from our sister city committees who work on relationships that have not been put forward as part of this prioritisation framework. And what they tell us is that they accept the logic of this international framework. They support the need to prioritise. And they also acknowledge that in the future, if their own relationships develop more importance for our city, then we have scope to reconsider and to add those in. So at the moment, we think that 4 priority relationships strikes the sweet spot between what we want to achieve and the limited amount of resources that we have.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Yanni?
Thank you. I was just wondering how we've assessed these relationships around our responsible principle in terms of our international work, which talks about upholding our city's values as a caring and responsible global actor and contributing to global challenges, including climate change action, resilience, supporting sustainable development, and countering violent extremism.
So, as you've noted, global responsibility has been at the core of this framework, and so we've been considering it the whole way along. In all of these partners, we see opportunities to do work where we can display our credentials as a globally responsible citizen. So particularly in areas like climate change adaptation and resilience, and any sort of innovation that comes with a global human good attached with it. Obviously, and as I've already said, there are areas where we as New Zealanders might have concerns. And I'll just say right now, I as a New Zealander have concerns about what's going on in the world right now. And the appropriate track for our country to raise those concerns is at the national level. And so we have not factored those types of national level considerations into our process of evaluating.
So can I just raise, because
Yanni, I've just seen your email, and I've just forwarded it through to Matt, but he won't have read it because he's sitting at the end of the table. That as part of the global responsibility core principle of our framework, that council asked staff to investigate an additional area in the Pacific to develop a priority targeted relationship with to help with resilience and development. It's not part of this proposal, but it's actually not at all contradictory to what we're trying to achieve. And if we're talking about resilience and development, we'd want partner agencies kind of connected into that as well, especially the universities. So I'm just,
that's fine. Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could change the wording of that, because I'd be happy to accept that as an additional resolution. But while you ask questions, I'll work up some
thank you.
an alternative set of words. Thank you.
And I mean, because Jimmy and I were on this group, and the thing that came through, I felt really strongly, was this isn't just about economic development. I mean, that's important, obviously, but there are also other things, and stuff have referred to that in 5.28, which is great. I think the thing for those of us who have been involved with this for some time is it would be nice to look at the Pacific in particular comes to mind, especially with what's happened in Tonga recently, but also previously in places like Samoa. And so I just was wanting to raise, I guess, a little bit of concern that this hasn't been picked up through the prioritisation process, but recognising obviously with COVID and with recent events in Tonga that maybe it was outside of the time frame where these things were being considered. So, I just wanted to kind of understand from staff the best process if we felt that there is a gap around climate change, resilience, etc., how we can address new areas being put forward.
I think that we would have options for councillors to consider on this. So, for example, in the Pacific, one option might be, instead of looking to prioritise a particular partnership, councillors might wish to consider establishing something like a Pacific Region Responsibility Fund that would allow the council to identify ad hoc opportunities to work with partners across the Pacific region to show our, leadership and credentials as a globally responsible citizen. So the draft wording that the mayor's just forwarded through to me, happy to consider that, and I think we would have options for you all to consider.
Can I just be really clear? Like, obviously this report was written well before recent events in Europe. So what lens have we put on this, if any, and what consideration has been given to what's happening there in light of the priorities that have been suggested?
So the lens that we've applied to looking at the world is dictated by our two priorities as agreed in this international relations policy framework, which, as I've mentioned, are economic growth, talent and skills, and connections related. And as I've already said, there's a very clear line between what needs to be addressed at the national state-to-state level, where New Zealand engages with its diplomatic partners, and the issues on which we as a city can engage and collaborate in the world. So we've been really conscious of that fine line, and we don't want to stray out of our swimming lane. So that is how we've prioritised these things.
I've got some suggested wording, but just before I send them through, that as part of the Global Responsibility core principle of the International Relations Policy Framework, that staff prepare advice on a targeted regional approach to the South Pacific nations to provide support for resilience and development. Does that kind of pick up your point, Yanni?
Yeah, and I mean, you might want to add connection as well. I mean, I think we've heard through the Strengthening Community Strategy and through the work from the Multicultural Strategy that it also is about the connection that the Pacific feels with Christchurch and how we view that back. So I think, that would be really good if we could add that. I think it would be positive.
Sorry, I'm struggling to understand about connection.
Oh, sorry, the principle that Matt talked about just before around that's one of the kind of key principles of the international relations framework.
Okay,
just the general principle of strengthening global connections.
To support our connections, our connections with the South Pacific nations to provide support for resilience and development. Yep. Okay, I'll send that through to councillors and to Joe, and that I'm happy for those words to be added as a recommendation. Sorry, and Celeste, question.
Hi, Matt. I'm just curious about the wording around the countering violent extremism under the Global Responsibilities 5.27.
Yeah.
That, to me, just could be interpreted a number of ways, depending on who's applying the language. Has there been any thought given to how that's used by both state and non-state actors to frame particular groups, and whether that itself should be in there?
Thanks. My understanding, and I'm happy to be corrected, but my understanding that countering violent extremism is the most politically correct and inclusive way to define the method by which nation states and other groups seek to stop violent extremist behaviour, because that expression doesn't try to call out people as terrorists or it doesn't try to define them as freedom fighters. It's very neutral. I know that we as a city have been invited to join a global grouping of cities that work to collaborate on what's called CVE, Countering Violent Extremism. So I would be surprised if it wasn't the correct language, considering that there's a group of 60 odd cities who are a party to that international grouping.
Celeste, you know, I'm totally hearing what you say, but we've had quite a big conversation as a council since March 15 around the role of inclusion and building social capital and all of those aspects which go to the heart of countering violent extremism. I don't really like the language either, but it is the language that's accepted internationally, and if the community has to be the heart of the response for that to be addressed. So I'm not sure where it was referred to that you're questioning the use of the term, but I can send you all of the information that actually Raf Manji and I obtained when we visited Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, who had undertaken the most dramatic listening exercise that absolutely reached out into different areas of the community that don't normally engage with councils. It was an extraordinary report, and the report itself identifies all of the cuts to things like adult and community education, all of those things that all went to undermine the underpinning of social capital. So, you know, it was it's an excellent report, so I'm really happy to send that to you, but it is also in the context of countering violent extremism, so I don't know how much help I am.
It'd be helpful to see that. I just wonder if there's another way to frame it, such as building, you know, peaceful dialogue, you know, another way, because I do think within international relations context it can be used in another way that could be, I don't know if that's, I still find it quite problematic, but it would be useful to read the other material.
Yeah, I think that it's actually more of a reference to the online activities. You know, people refer to terrorists often as lone wolves, you know, but they're not alone. They find their comfort on the very dark parts of the deep web, and are actually given expression to all that sense of belonging that they don't experience in the real world. So it's a tragic reality that our world is having to confront. Anyway, but I will send you that stuff. It's very good stuff. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Well, I'm happy to move the motion. Jimmy Chen.
I would like to second.
You would like to second the motion? All right.
Yes.
I shall open it up for debate. Yanni.
Sorry, I was happy to move the additional.
No, it's included.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, just to speak to this. Yeah, I mean, I think staff for the work that they've done on this. I do have some concern in regards to one of the priority partnerships that's been suggested, particularly with Guangdong province in China. And although we've heard from staff that these things should be addressed at a state-to-state level, I think what's extraordinary with the current situation is what we are seeing is that actually it's the private sector, it's the community sector, it's the cultural sector, and it's the people-to-people response that has been so incredible to see in terms of condemning what is happening in our world today. And so for me personally, as someone who lives in Christchurch, you know, we are a peace city that has experienced hostility and harm from deliberate acts of hate and terror And we're also a coastal city that has suffered from natural disasters that have brought widespread destruction. So based on what we have been through, I feel we have a unique role in the world where we can and should reciprocate the generosity that others have given us in our darkest days, and that we should act in a globally responsible manner to promote harmony and unity, and where we should share our story with lessons and insights to help others who may not be as fortunate as we are today. So giving back, in my view, is essential. It cannot just be about what we can take or how much money we can make. It must also be about doing what we can to protect our environment and to help humanity. And with the events unfolding in the world today, I think certainly one of these relationships, we need to pause on the framework and reconsider the priorities. Because at this unprecedented time in our world's history, with the potential for World War III and unparalleled climate change impacts facing us, I believe we should be looking more towards the Pacific and towards Eastern Europe, and we should be looking at what we can do on a city level. This city was instrumental in New Zealand becoming nuclear free. We were one of the first cities, and we were the first city in the country to declare ourselves nuclear free. Cities can make a difference. This city has also had a proud history of enabling women the right to vote. So we can change the world as a city if we stand up to what we believe in and promote those values that we hold dear. So I won't be supporting 1A. I don't believe that we should be seeking a partnership within a country who has not condemned what is happening, and there's certainly economic support that I believe is being provided to support the invasion of Ukraine. So in solidarity with what's happening over there, and in terms of our city's history as a peace city, I do not believe that the timing is appropriate for us to be pursuing this relationship at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanni. I'll put that separately. Jimmy?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I fully support the staff recommendation because as Yanni, he mentioned earlier, he was the deputy chair, I was the chair for the Council's International Relations Working Group. We have been working together with the officer and with the wider stakeholders to establish the Otatahi Christchurch International Relations Policy Framework. And also we have been in a corporate way presented to the Council approval in August 2019. In that time, we look forward to those action plan or work plan can be presented to the Council as quickly as possible, try to have a greater benefit to the city, to our future. However, due to the COVID-19 restrictions and also our international border has been closed. So until today, we can receive this the comprehensive, reasonable report. But if we review today's the staff officer, the recommendation, those the priority for the international citywide focus partnership, and also the Australia, those all the recovery, those partner is already under the strategic framework. Because we review those strategic framework, we can see we separate a different category: citywide focus partnership, agency partnership, and also citizen and the community partnership. So those today we can see the Guangdong province, China, and the west coast of USA, Republic of Korea, and Australia. All these four regions, we did already have our sister city in there. For instance, like Guangdong, we have the Shenzhen as our strategic friendly city. And Australia, we have Adelaide as a city. And in the West Coast, USA, we have Seattle. And Korean, we have Songpa. They already built a very good relationship as a foundation. After earthquake, we are all aware up to now, our city is innovative, sustainable, diverse, inclusive, resilient, international city. So we need to consider our future. We cannot close our door. We have to open our door. particularly like the officer, the mate, he mentioned earlier, we need to integrate all our resources, focus these 4 type, the kind of international priority. Then we can gather the result, best result and outcome. Then they can bring back to the council table. I think I would like to say this is a life purpose for our city. It's very, very crucial, very important. The other one I would like to take an
Jimmy.
example.
That's the 3 minutes.
Just our mayor actually is a goodwill ambassador to make the China South.
I'll let you say that.
He visited those ones several times. I admire, so I have to share those ones because I experienced he done a great job. So I urge our fellow councillors, we can unanimous to support this whole package.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Sarah.
I think that the addition of building relationships in the Pacific to this will help us enormously, not necessarily in the short term. So the other centres that we're looking at are focused more on sort of short-term recovery issues and economic issues at a citywide level. But when it comes to the Pacific and our Pacific neighbours, the reality is that climate change is going to hit them much worse than it's going to hit us, and much sooner, because of the nature of where they are. So helping in development sense, helping in building resilience, but also building those connections is going to be crucial, because we are going to be facing, as a world, significant global migration due to climate impact. And it is going to make a lot of sense for New Zealand to be welcoming our Pacific neighbours in that area. And so starting to build those relationships now, becoming stronger, better connected, is going to make a lot of sense. And we have significant Pacifica communities here in Christchurch already. And building upon that, I think, is going to be really important going forward. Thanks.
Anyone else? I'll just close it off and just acknowledge staff and say thank you very much for all of the work that you've done to bring this here. It is a challenging time, and there's much that is causing great concern around the world. I just wanted to highlight just a couple of things from the report itself. Modern, dynamic and successful cities are highly connected internationally, deliberate in their outreach, and make full use of their country's own diplomatic network. And I think that the mechanism whereby you bring together a range of different agencies, central government, along with local organisations, to approach our way in the international world, then we certainly do benefit from the proposal that's brought to us today. With an international airport and a seaport, a significant exporting base and a large number of globally connected institutions, Christchurch is an international city. But as we emerge from 1, the earthquake rebuild, and 2, the COVID-19 pandemic, there is an opportunity to maximise our economic recovery and reassert our place as Aotearoa's second city through more deliberate international engagement. And I think that sums it up for me. I do agree, though, that the addition of the Pacific nations and the connections that we can utilise there in order to build resilience in the South Pacific, it is something that we have as a desire of our own, and it's something that we can certainly build on and support others to achieve. And just finally, I should note for the record that just at the end of last month, I was appointed as a New Zealand honorary advisor to the Asia New Zealand Foundation. So, and for me, I think it isn't my role. It's actually a recognition of the role of Christchurch and the significance of the role that the mayor can play by way of ensuring that those relationships are developed and enhanced. So it was with great pleasure that I have accepted, I should say, honorary appointment to this position, because I think it will add value that we can add value both ways. And that was my last point that I wanted to make with respect to something Yanni said. This is absolutely a two-way street. There's a lot that we have learned that we want to share with the rest of the world, and we are given opportunities to do so because of the experiences that we've been through. So again, a big thank you not only to Matt and the team here, but actually broadly out through Christchurch NZ, the airport company, the universities, and all those who've come together with MFAT as well in order to ensure that this policy could be brought to us today. So I will. It's probably easier if I will put the motion. So, but I'm going to separate off A. So 1A I will put first, and then I'll put the balance of the recommendations. So the first one that I'll put is 1A, Guangdong Province, China. So all those in favour, put up your hands. And those opposed, put up your hands. So that's Yanni.
Abstain.
Yanni, Celeste, and an abstention from Pauline.
Pauline, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and Phil, that's against? Right, okay, thank you.
Can I just have mine recorded?
Yeah, no, I'll record the against. So that's Yanni, Celeste, Phil Major, and an abstention from Pauline Cotter. So we've got those. Right, thank you very much. And now I'll put the balance of the recommendations. If you could put up your hand for aye. And those opposed, we're all good with that. So that's fine, the balance. Thank you. So that's we've got someone waiting online for the